Okay, I can see myself on the big screen there, so this is interesting. Hi, everyone. Thank you so much for having me. My name is Katherine Phillips. I am the Health Legislative Assistant in the Office of Senator Mark Kelly from Arizona. Obviously, we are thrilled that we have such a robust panel of experts here today, and really appreciate the invitation to join you all. I really enjoyed the previous panel, especially since the legislation that I'm here to speak on, I think is intended to address a lot of the issues raised with the vaccine development process. So I am here to give a brief overview of the Forward Act, which, as I said, would help move vaccine development forward. And so I would just say off the top, my boss is the proud father of a dog that has had valley fever. So he was excited to have the opportunity to lead this bill in the Senate in his first term. In the House, Leader Kevin McCarthy and Congressman Schweikert from Arizona have been real leaders on this bill, and I want to make sure to recognize that for several years. They've put a lot of work into drafting this piece of legislation and moving it along, so we're very grateful for that. But I would just say, I think we all know we're at a big moment. We're at a big moment in the fight against AMR right now, and to develop new antimicrobials. And I think that's in large part due to the work so many of you have done to continually raise this issue with policymakers, do the education work. We are not experts the way that you all are here on Capitol Hill, so it's really helpful to hear from you and explain it in terms that my boss and his colleagues can understand both what the problem is and how we can help address it from the policy side. And you've really kept the momentum going. We have seen advocates really coalesce around the Forward Act as well as the Pasteur Act, which I'm sure many of you are familiar with, which creates a subscription type program to encourage antimicrobial drug development. I can quickly say, the Pasteur Act is not my boss's bill. That is led by Senators Bennett from Colorado and Senator Young, and I know they are working really hard to get that bill incorporated into one of the final pieces of legislation that we hope to pass before the end of this calendar year. They have been working closely with relevant agencies on technical assistance and committees and leadership to try to make that happen. And that has involved, making some tweaks to the bill to give it a lower price tag, which is always very popular in Congress. But I think importantly for this conversation, while Pasteur Act would include the development of antifungal drugs, it does not address vaccine development. It specifically does not include vaccine development. So that's obviously something we're really excited about given the panel before, and we know has a lot of promise. So that's where our bill comes in. So what the Forward Act does is seek to move research forward on vaccine development into valley fever and relevant fungal diseases in a couple of different ways. So first, the bill would establish an endemic fungal disease working group to kick things off with a strategy to promote vaccine development. We've seen a bit of that already from NIAID, as was discussed, but we want to really set the scene and make sure agencies understand where the research stands, make sure we have a coordinated approach. And as I said, NIAID focused on that from their end. But this working group would come from representatives from the federal government, as well as stakeholders like many of you, I'm sure, the real experts on the science here. So then I think we really get into the teeth of the bill, which is to incentivize research and product development using a lot of the tools that we already have in our policy toolbox. From the FDA side, this bill would require FDA to issue draft industry guidance within 2 years, have some public working groups, workshops for feedback, which HHS has already started, and this would help make sure folks know exactly what FDA is looking for. And to make sure we can actually develop what FDA is looking for, that's where BARDA would come in. And I know that previously it was mentioned that, folks have tried with BARDA and it hasn't worked out. This would this uses the language of BARDA shall, which is the key here. BARDA shall come in and establish a program similar to the CARB-X program to help promising candidates move through the development process. And to me, I love BARDA, and I think this is really the most exciting part of the bill. I mean, since we do have promising vaccine candidates, especially the one that we're most excited about, I will say, from the University of Arizona, we know that we need a human funder here. And it's in the best interest, especially given what we've seen regarding climate change and the spread of this disease, for BARDA to step in to protect public health. So also on the FDA side, some of the additional incentives for development that Dr. Manath mentioned in the previous panel, adding COX-C to the COX-C treatments to the list of drugs that could receive priority review. So move the application review process to within 6 months instead of 10, adding drugs intended to treat COX-C to the list of products that can go through the fast track pathway. So that makes you more quickly eligible for priority review or for accelerated approval, and adding COX-C to the list of eligible diseases that can receive a priority review voucher. So we know that the company that does create something will receive priority review. So that's what the bill does, and that's all great, but kind of what now? It's November. We are coming up on the end of this Congress. I think we were really hopeful that we would be able to move the bill this Congress, given the FDA user fee package that was a must-pass bill. Parts of our bill were included in the House's version of the user fees bill. Ultimately, we ended up with a very, very narrow user fee agreement. But I do think that we have a lot of opportunity for next year for Forward in particular. We're expecting to have a Cures 2.0 package that will address biomedical research. That could be a promising avenue. We also are going to potentially have Leader McCarthy become Speaker of the House, which we know this is a big priority for him, and I'm sure it will continue to be, so I think that's very helpful. On our side of the Capitol and the Senate, we've been working with Senator Sinema and Senator Feinstein, naturally from Arizona and California, on this bill, but we've not been able to secure a Republican co-sponsor. I think part of that is geography, but we do know that there are some states like Utah and Texas that are impacted by Valley fever, and so we would really love to have a Republican partner working on this with us, which I would ask folks to keep in mind if they're doing any advocacy work here. And I'm sure we will continue to see this spread. And I think highlighting the economic impact that folks have done already can often be useful in those conversations. But in the meantime, as we work to move the bill through the process, I think, and work with both leadership and committees on both sides of the Capitol, we are working to move pieces of the legislation through the appropriations process, partially how the NIAID report came to be, but working on encouraging BARDA to look more closely at antifungals and, highlighting the importance of investment here from the federal government is something that I think we can achieve in FY23. So the bill that we will hopefully pass in less than a month. But I think those are just stepping stones as we work to, craft broader legislation that will have the weight of law and get that passed next year. So we are excited about this. We are really eager to move the bill next year. And certainly all of you and your continued advocacy and momentum, keeping the momentum going will be incredibly important. And obviously you're the ones that are doing the hard work here. So I want to say thank you again for both having me today and for the work that you're doing. It's an honor that we can help move it along. So we appreciate you continuing to let us know what you need to make your candidates successful and what policy levers we need to be pulling in order to make that happen. So thank you.